You don't have any Stephen King?
You've got the shinin'.
You mean shiny.
Shh. Wanna get sued?
It's just your fate. You're that geeky Stephen King kid. There's one of you in every school.
Okay, that's him, that's Cujo, that's Cujo.
I was thinking along the lines of no TV and no beer make Homer something.
Oh, crazy.
Don't mind if I do!
Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. Tower Junkies is a podcast celebrating the work of Stephen King, hosted by two lifelong constant readers. We do non-spoiler and spoiler reviews of King's published work, and take a critical look at his film and television adaptations as well. We also discuss the latest King news and check in with each other on our ongoing King obsessions. It's the podcast where all things serve the King. You can find more of our work at TowerJunkiesPod.com and more of our podcasting at ObsessiveViewer.com/podcasts, and you can also like the Facebook page at Facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod, and follow us on every level of social media at TowerJunkiesPod. And if you'd like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at Patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer for a ridiculous amount of bonus content spread across all of ObsessiveViewer.com's various podcasts. At the $1 level, you get B-roll stuff where, like the one that Tiny and I just recorded, is all about me, lamenting the loss of my laptop and talking about some cool podcasting gear. I don't really like saying that, like, oh, podcasting gear. I don't know why. I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah.
Gear's a buzzword though.
It is. But yeah, so talking about some good podcast equipment, and then $2 level gets you that plus, book reviews and TV reviews as well. I just did all 7 episodes of Midnight Mass. I went through and reviewed each episode as I watched it. So yeah, check that out.
Sweet.
And I also have Billy Summers up there in 100-page intervals, so check that out. $5 gets you all of that, plus commentary tracks, which I'm currently doing commentary tracks for Halloween 2, 1981, Halloween H2O, and Halloween 2018, and then since it's going to be on Peacock, I'm going to do a commentary track for Halloween Kills. So you get all of that plus like 15 other commentary tracks for $5 plus everything at the $2 level and $1 level. And then if you pledge $10 per month, you get everything that I've just said, plus early access to content and some unreleased stuff that I post just for the $10 patrons. So again, that's at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. And yeah, so I'm one of your hosts, Matt Hurt, and joining me as usual is Tiny. Tiny, how is it going?
It's going good, man.
Nice. What's new with you?
Not much.
Nice.
Got a short week this week. I'm excited.
Ah, nice. Yes. Anniversary week.
Anniversary week. Yeah.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. We talked about this on Patreon, so we don't need to rehash it. But
right.
But I have tomorrow off, so I'm excited.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So big things for both of us. So
totes.
Yeah. And yes, so today on the show, in the chronology in the planning of the podcast, we were supposed to be doing Tales from the Dark Side, the movie this week. Technically, we were supposed to do that. No, we're supposed to do that this week. Mm-hmm. Oh, good. Okay, I was worried that there was going to be a lapse, but no, we're still a week ahead. Anyway, so we were going to do Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, as planned as part of our Creepshow kind of spectacular, but kind of things got in the way and we didn't get a chance to watch the movie or do the homework or anything. So we're going to take a brief recess from the Creepshow series that we're doing, and we're just going to do our top 19 Stephen King adaptations. And so we're going to be talking about that in this episode. We're not going to be spoiling anything, so feel free to listen to this episode and let us know what your top 19 King adaptations are. And to kind of clarify, when we say adaptations, that also includes original works for TV and film. So, like, I mean, Castle Rock isn't a direct adaptation of anything in particular, but that counts as something. And same with, like, Storm of the Century, which is only a miniseries and nothing else. And Other stuff. So yeah. So obviously, King has a lot of stuff in the Tillman Phoebe category in the film and television medium. So I'm excited to finally do this. And
yeah, me too. We've been talking about this for a while.
We have. Oh, yeah. And if you want to check in on our top 19s of novels and everything, and when this posts, it'll probably be up there too. Go to towerjunkies.com/top19. Or no, it's towerjunkiespod.com. That's the actual URL. towerjunkiespod.com/top19. And that's where I keep all of our top 19 stuff there. So check that out as well. Or if you want to just spoil this episode, go check that out now and see where our top 19 is. But yeah, and you'll also see pictures of our beautiful little faces. So yeah. Okay, cool. So Tiny.
Yes.
As is customary, we're going to do some Stephen King news and check-ins. Do you have any? Let's go with I know you have some check-ins, so I'm just going to go ahead and say news, and then we'll go into check-ins if that's okay.
That works.
Okay, so I really only have one piece of news, and it's a pretty interesting one. So it was announced last week that Blumhouse Productions has announced the 2 cast members of the adaptation of Mr. Harrigan's Phone, which is one of the novellas in If It Bleeds that came out 2019. And so this is exciting because I don't know the story. And everything, but I've heard that it's one of the stronger ones in that collection. It's written and directed by John Lee Hancock, who I can't place what I've seen of his work, but it is going to star as presumably the titular Mr. Harrigan. It is going to star Donald Sutherland and as the kid of the story apparently, Jaden Martell from old Bill from It.
Nice.
Yeah. Big Bill. There we go.
Big Bill Denbrough.
Big Bill Denbrough. Yeah, so that's exciting. And again, I love it whenever there's, Stephen
Crossover.
King. Yeah, crossovers and stuff.
Universe.
So, yes. So how do you feel about this casting? Production is beginning this month in October, and it is going to be released in 2022. So we're going to have to do If It Bleeds next year.
Totes, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it TV or movie?
That is a great question. I believe it's a feature film. Okay. I want to say, I don't know if it's going to be like a streaming thing or if it's going to be theatrical.
Okay.
I'm leaning toward theatrical since it's Blumhouse.
Yeah.
But I mean, they could also make it a Peacock thing.
Yeah.
So
cool. I mean, hey, it's a couple big names.
Yeah.
I do like Jaden Martell.
Me too.
He's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. And who doesn't like Donald Sutherland?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right, so that's cool.
Well, I will say Katniss Everdeen doesn't.
All right.
Am I right?
Because
he was the bad
President
guy.
Snow.
President Snow.
Right.
Nothing President Snow.
Nice.
Talking about crossover.
Right.
So John Lee Hancock wrote The Blind Side.
Okay.
Yikers. So won't hold that against him. Oh, he also directed the movie The Little Things that got pretty maligned this year.
Yeah.
Let's see. Some of his other credits are The Founder, which I thought was fine.
That was a good movie. I liked it.
Yeah. One of my favorite jokes that I've ever said on the podcast on Obsessive Viewer, or I think I said it on social media, was that, I think that, probably, hang on, The Founder, because it's about Ray Kroc and the founding of McDonald's and how I kind of stole the idea from the McDonald's brothers and everything. So my kind of, my immediate reaction to it that was really jokey and stupid was that it hang on, I'm gonna find it here. I thought that I could vamp, but I can't. Oh, I don't have it on there. God damn it. Anyway, so yeah, my whole thought was like, I only liked a part of it, so technically it's kind of like a quarter founder. Yeah.
That's funny.
That's dumb.
That's dumb.
But yeah, so yeah, that's some of John Lee Hancock's work.
Yeah, that's not super inspiring, I guess, that he's involved.
Yeah, did he? Or I mean, he also directed Saving Mr. Banks. Did you ever see that?
Oh, yeah, that was the Walt
Disney,
yeah.
Tom Hanks.
That was a charming movie.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess what I'll say about that movie, I liked the concept better than the execution.
Okay.
Put it that way. But it was a solid movie, though.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
The actress, gosh, I'm spacing on her name. Professor Trelawney from Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah.
Emma Thompson.
Did you say you're spanking on her name?
Blanking on her
Blanking.
name.
Okay.
Emma Thompson.
Emma Thompson, yes.
Yes, she was fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyways. Yeah.
Oh, Colin Farrell's in that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. So anyway, that's the news that I have. Cool. Tiny, I've got a couple things for check-ins. You have a couple things, or you have one. What do you have?
I have a couple of things I got. I can guess I'd do them in one check-in.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So I purchased from Amazon recently.
Nice.
I'm trying to get back into like some physical books,
nice.
As opposed to just Audible. And so for that I purchased Joyland and The Colorado Kid and the physical like comic book adaptation of Creepshow.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I've read through The Colorado Kid already, which I enjoyed. I started Joyland. I haven't gotten very far yet because of all the work and everything I was doing the past couple weeks. And then I just got Creepshow this weekend, so I haven't gotten into that yet. But
nice.
I think I will definitely I'll mention probably during check-ins in a future episode, like what I thought of Creepshow, the comic book adaptation of it. But I think eventually we might have an episode about Joyland and the Colorado Kids.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that. Did you want to do just doubling those up and do like both Colorado Kid and Joyland since they're both short, or do separate episodes?
We can double up as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
whatever you want to do. Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to have a guest on there, a returning guest.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yes. Yeah. So,
but anyways, reading Colorado Kid really got me. There was like a prologue, if you will, kind of introducing the idea of the hard case crime.
Oh, okay.
Books written by the guy who kind of started the company. I can't remember his name.
Okay.
Dave something. I want to say David something. Because I think Colorado Kid was the first one.
Oh, really?
I think he had the idea and he wrote to Stephen King because he knew he was a big fan of that concept, and he just wanted him to write a blurb for them.
Okay.
Kind of introducing it, and he was like, "I'll do you one better. I'll give you a story." And
that's so awesome.
Yeah, so I think it was the first one, and so his little prologue forward from this guy is in that, and I just thought it was such a cool idea.
Nice.
Totally like a grassroots kind of just fully like inspired from a couple of art nerds, book nerd kind of people. So I just love the idea, and so I think there's about 20 of them, and so I'm just going to start buying those, the actual paperbacks, the physical form of them. So I just bought it's called Bust. I can't remember the author's name. So yeah, I'm going to start collecting all those and reading them, and I'll check in, occasionally as I collect them. It's a really cool collection because they're all like, I guess in the past when they would do those trade paperbacks that kind of inspired it, you would go get them like anywhere, like they'd be at the pharmacy, and the grocery store, the gas station, and they'd be like a quarter. And so they're all really cheap. Like most of them are around $10 or less. Yeah. And so they're really cheap, and they're all quick reads, like 200-300 pages, and it's totally just supposed to be like quick digestible stories. There's usually a mystery. They're kind of sexy, stuff like that, noirish kind of stories. So I just love the concept, and so I'm going to fully buy into it and get those stories.
Nice. That's awesome. Because Later was one of them.
Right. Later,
yeah. Tiny, there's more than 20.
Oh, really? Maybe it's just because I looked at... I've only read The Colorado Kid, and they just had the list.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you how many there are?
How many are there?
Well, first of all, let me just say, Tiny, that it's really interesting because some of the, like, I know that there's a bunch that were written by Michael Crichton under a pseudonym of John Lang.
Right.
So that's cool. But according to their website, 135.
Well, shit.
So yeah.
Huh. Well, I guess because the Colorado Kid was the first one, maybe they're just, the reprint or whatever just had like the first 20 on there.
Right.
I don't know. But, well, I'll collect them until I'm tired of it, I guess.
Right. Nice. More power to you.
Yeah. So.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah. Like I said, they're not expensive. They're not big.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
They seem like good, like beach reads.
Right.
Yeah.
And they all have, you know, a unique piece of cover art on them.
The cover art's amazing.
Yeah. That's very inspired by, like, the noir era kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're just fun.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, so for my check-ins, are you ready for my check-ins? Did you have another one?
No, that's all. That's it. I'm good.
Okay, cool. So I just have a couple of check-ins. That just went away from my phone. Okay, so I have a couple of check-ins. Really fun stuff. First, I'll do the non-related Stephen King thing, but friend of the show, JP Leck, who is the mastermind of the Endless Elsewhere. He is an alum of the Shocktober in Irvington event that we did.
Yep.
He has, I've mentioned it before, he has a podcast, the Endless Elsewhere podcast, which has my voice as the true crime YouTuber Adam Baum, which was in one of his short films and in the podcast. And so he very, very nicely messaged me and said, like, hey, I've got something for you if you want to give me your address. So I'm like, okay, yeah. So I gave him my address and he gave me this. It's a coffee mug with the Adam Baum logo on it.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So that's nice. Yeah. And then the Endless Elsewhere is logos on the back. Pieces on the cat tree.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anyway, check that out, endlesselsewhere.com. There's a bunch of stuff there. And he also has a Patreon for the podcast. So check that out as well.
Cool.
And thank you, JP, if you're listening. I really appreciate it. And just that logo looks so cool.
It does.
Can you see it?
It's very cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Very retro.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool. Yeah. So I'm excited.
So what's your process for getting into character?
Okay, I just
is it you do method or are you like
I'm so method. So I went and found an atomic bomb and no, it's funny because I don't have any voice acting talent at all or experience. But like he said that, I remember when he first asked me about it, he was like, you know, I've listened to your voice in my head so much that when I was writing this character, like it was your voice and everything.
Wow, that's
so funny. I was like, that is so touching. That's so nice.
Nice.
And so like I didn't do much like in terms of like doing any like any work or anything on it, like any character work or anything.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to just be like podcast voice. But also given the subject matter of it, because it's the character is recounting some of the strange occurrences in Circle City. And so like I would definitely have to do like pizza roll was at the vet and she had to have her bladder checked. But what happened next may terrify you. She froed up on the carpet.
Chills, bro.
Yes,
I got chills.
Yes. JP, if you're listening, feel free to put that in. Yeah. But anyway, you guys check that out. Endlesselsewhere.com. It is awesome. And I just have the utmost respect for JP Leck.
Totally.
I mean, just he has this overarching vision and everything. It's so cool. It's crazy. It's so cool.
What he's achieved over the last like decade.
Yes, it's insane. And like the amount of work, the amount of output and everything, and just the different like the multimedia aspect of it. Because like he has like photo comic books or photographic novels of it. He has novels. He has podcasts. He has short films. It's so cool.
It's basically a one-man Marvel.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So very cool. Okay, and so I have a couple of other check-ins I want to get through. First is that I don't think I got around to saying this on the podcast the last time, but listener Jason tweeted at me a while ago, back in September 30th, and said, just finished reading Billy Summers last night, which means I just finished listening to the Tower Junkies review today. This one is top tier King for me. The relationship between Billy and Alice is incredible, and that ending. And so I was delighted when that tweet came through. And then he, like as soon after that, I got an email saying that, oh, he just became a new patron at the $2 level. And then he tweeted me and said, and your Billy Summers reviews just earned you a $2 patron and everything. I'm excited to listen to them. So, Jason, if you're listening, hope you're enjoying the Patreon content.
Cool.
Yeah. So, yeah. And that's what I have for that check-in. And then the other check-in, I think this will be my last check-in, and then we can get into our top 19s. I'm actually really excited now.
Yeah.
Friend of the show, Victor Gamboa, who hosts his own podcast, the Outer Limits podcast, of which I was a guest, and he is also the proud owner of a Rodecaster Pro as well. At my recommendation, he DM'd me a while ago, and he just said, like, hey, I haven't read any Stephen King. Where do you recommend I begin? So I'm like, okay, let's do this. All right. So I recommended that he read Different Seasons first, because I figured that is a good entry point to get a good taste of Stephen King's storytelling prowess. And it's not too, because I kind of feel like with Stephen King, you kind of have this understand or this mistaken understanding for people that aren't familiar with him that he's just a horror writer. It's something we've talked about ad nauseum. So I wanted to direct Victor toward something that is not necessarily horror, and it's not horror through and through or anything. So I recommended Different Seasons, and then like very soon after that, he sent me another DM and said, well, Matt, I thought you should know that you hit it out of the park with your recommendation. I just finished Apt Pupil, and holy catfish, I had to stop the body 10 minutes in because I'm still in the headspace of that story.
Wow.
Yeah, and he said, I haven't seen the film adaptations of Apt Pupil or Shawshank, but those were fucking incredible stories. Just wanted to say thanks again and let you know that you've opened my eyes or ears, because he listens on Audible, to the work of the King. And I'm just
awesome.
I'm so delighted by that.
Yeah.
And then he followed that up this past Saturday, and he said, Matt, sorry I keep bugging you with this stuff, but I finished Different Seasons, and I very much enjoyed every story in it. If I had to rank them, I'd go Apt Pupil, Shawshank, The Body, and The Breathing Method. They're all very close. I didn't dislike any of them. I did get a chuckle from The Breathing Method because the sister hospital to the one I work at is named White Memorial. So that was fun to hear. So it's you'll
Gotcha.
You'll see.
Okay.
Tiny. So I'm super excited for him to be exposed to more Stephen King.
Nice.
And next up for him is going to be Night Shift, which I am personally excited for him to read just because it is night and day, no pun intended because Night Shift, but it is night and day from Different Seasons. It is much more aggressive and much more just, I keep wanting to use the word gnarly, but I'm going to tell you guys a secret. Almost every single time I've heard someone use the word gnarly, like, oh man, that scene was so gnarly, I don't know if they mean it's good or bad.
Yeah, it's kind of a ambiguous word. That way. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So so that's my secret shame. But Night Shift is a very gnarly or extreme collection. So I'm very curious what Victor's response to that's going to be. And also, I'm selfish in that I recommended Night Shift to him because I have that Stephen King Patreon project in the works. So all of January on Patreon at the $2 level, the $2 patrons are going to get weekly installments of what I'm calling the Church of King, because every Sunday you're going to have a new episode of me talking about short stories from Stephen King. January is Night Shift, and so that's every Sunday in January. It's going to be another edition of me talking about Night Shift, and I will say, since Victor happens to be a $10 patron, he's going to have access to all of that on January 1st. So yeah.
Sweetness.
Okay, so those are my check-ins. And any thoughts on that, Tiny?
No, exciting that we got more patrons filtering in.
Yes, I'm very excited about that. Thank you guys so much for joining our Patreon. And I mentioned this on Patreon, and I'm going to say it again, that I felt really weirdly awkward because Paige, listener Paige, patron Paige now, she joined Patreon, and it was after it was right before the previous Patreon episode was released, in which I actually reference her and her new cat. And so like the day before that episode was going to release, I got an email saying like, oh, she became a Patreon supporter. I'm like, oh, that's great. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to seem creepy as hell. Like, oh, hey, you just joined Patreon, and then you're like, I just imagine like, oh, I'm so excited to finally get, Patreon stuff for Obsessive Viewer. And then, oh, this is about Matt's cat. I'm going to listen to this. And then, oh, he's talking about me. What the hell?
That is odd.
Yeah. But she commented and like I mentioned, we talked about it, and she's like, no. It was just like, oh, that's just me. It's like, oh, that's talking about me. That's awesome.
Nice.
So yeah. So if you want to know if we've talked about you, go join Patreon and go through the backlog. We don't say anything negative about anyone.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, those are my check-ins.
Cool.
Do you want to get rolling on the episode?
Let's do it.
All right. So as previously mentioned, we are going to be counting down our top 19 Stephen King TV and film projects. So it is our top 19 adaptations of King's work and other film and TV adaptations, and works. So Tiny, I don't really remember how we did this when we did our top 19, but obviously we're going to go 19 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll just do I'll start with my number 19, you'll say yours, okay. And then if we have one, if your number 19 is my number 9, how do you think we should do that? Should I say oh, hey, that's not my number 9, and then you say your thing? That's probably the cleanest way to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. Unless we come to each other's number 1, because we don't know each other's list.
Right.
So, yeah, that's gonna spoil it, but yeah, okay, we'll figure it out. Okay. So we're gonna talk about our top 19 Stephen King movie and TV works. We're not gonna spoil these individual titles or anything, so feel free to listen along. I'll try to put show notes in the episode, or put timestamps in the show notes of the episode, so you can kind of figure out where we're at and everything. But Tiny, do you want to get us kicked off with your number 19 Stephen King adaptation?
I will gladly do that.
Nice.
My number 19 is the It miniseries from 1990.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, which I was a little surprised that I found myself bringing it up. But we reviewed that, or at least mentioned it on the podcast. I should have looked up the episodes where we talked about these.
Yes. So I
should have been more diligent about it.
I think what we did there was I think I talked about it with maybe Fecus.
Okay.
Or maybe you and I did, but I think it was episode 4.
I know I've mentioned it before on the podcast.
Yeah.
So you can reference that episode for further thoughts. But I think why I want to include it on my list is the fact that I think it demonstrates really well the vision that King had in the book. Most notably the vision of how well these kids got along with each other, and their friendship, their love for each other, their Losers Club, and it's demonstrated pretty well in the miniseries. And I also think it's really his full vision. It's really extensive, and it's I also find Tim Curry as Pennywise is iconic. I mean, truly iconic. And I think it stands out for that reason. I really love it. And it does have a lot of flaws. It's got the full 90s camp, and the 90s was not a great time for television. As far as the budgets involved and
especially TV miniseries.
Right. And the way people treated it and people's attitudes towards it, it was not as revered as it is today.
Right.
And so, but I think if you set those things aside and you have the right expectations going in and you have a passion for the story, I think it's a good adaptation for people to see. Mm-hmm. I think there are better adaptations of It, the film, the story It. Mm-hmm. But I think this one is worth a watch to people who are. I've read the book twice, and it's one of my favorite King books. Yeah. And that's the reason why I would include it on my top 19 adaptations is that it is a loyal adaptation of his story, and it demonstrates some of those ideas really well. And despite all its flaws. Mm-hmm. So I think it's worth a watch for true It fans or King fans.
Nice. Yeah. Yes. And that was episode 4 that I talked about it with guest Fecus on it. So you weren't on that episode, I don't believe. But
okay. I feel like I've talked about it before, though.
I'm sure you have at some point. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, probably when we talked about It Chapter 2 or did our It Chapter 1 commentary track on there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Very cool. So that miniseries did not make my top 19, actually. My number 19, though, is the 1991 film, which I know you haven't seen, but it is Sometimes They Come Back. Mm-hmm. Tim Matheson stars as a teacher who has some traumatic experience from childhood that creeps up upon him. So basically, he has a traumatic incident in his past involving some teenage bullies when he was a child, and they basically start infiltrating, they weirdly start infiltrating his class as he's a teacher, as new students. And there's a weird time thing where they're still teenagers and he's, it's 30 years later. Mm-hmm. Really interesting story. The movie it's number 19. So it's not like the strongest, but
right.
Yeah, but there's some pretty cheesy stuff in it. But by all accounts, it is a very solid story. Very solid adaptation of the story.
Nice.
And I mean, that's one of my favorite stories from Night Shift. And I'm just glad that there's something out there that's adapted.
Nice.
So it's good. It's Sometimes They Come Back.
Cool. Yeah, and obviously it's not on my list because I haven't seen it. So.
Right. Yeah.
I'll see it at some point.
Yep. I think maybe next January.
Okay. Sure.
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah. So that Sometimes They Come Back.
Yeah.
I have not seen the sequels. So
okay.
Yeah. But yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So what is your number 18?
My number 18 is the miniseries from 2016, 11/22/63.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. Which was that on Hulu?
That was on Hulu.
That's
and
what I thought.
I reviewed it on the podcast with Mike in episode 41.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. I haven't spoken about it, I don't think, on the podcast.
Yeah.
At least not much. I watched it back in 2016 when it came out, and I haven't watched it since. I've been meaning to rewatch it. But I think the reason I love it is because it captures one of the core essences of the story, and that I think one of the core motivations of that book is, what's the character's name? Jake Epping, I believe. Jake Epping.
Yes.
Played by James Franco in the miniseries. Mm-hmm. Falls in love with a girl. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the strongest motivations in that story.
Yeah.
And I think that love story was told very loyally. Mm-hmm. To what was in the story. And I think it actually worked really well. I'm not the biggest James Franco fan. Sometimes I really like him. Sometimes I'm like, whatever. Mm-hmm. I think he did well enough with this. I enjoyed him well enough in this. Nice. But it was actually the actress, which I should have looked up her name. I forget.
I think it's Sarah Gadon.
Sure. That sounds right.
Yeah.
She was the standout of the series for me. I thought she was magnificent. It doesn't hurt that she is a gorgeous woman.
Right.
But that she was just so lovable. Mm-hmm. Her character was so lovable.
That very small town
totally
quality. That is one of the best parts of the book for me, is that small town quality that permeates throughout the whole story.
Absolutely. So they captured that feel so well. The whole time is obdurate thing was another aspect that I think is difficult to film. and they pulled it off in this miniseries.
Yeah.
And they just got the feel right. It just felt right. I loved the transition back to the early 60s. It just felt right in so many ways. Obviously, the book is better.
Right.
That's a given, right? But it's I'm so glad they chose to make a series instead of a movie. I think this would have been
me too.
a very easy. I almost assumed they were going to make this a movie instead of a series because it's such a famous event. So many, it would reach a broad audience because it's such a famous event. I was so sure this was going to be a movie, but thankfully they decided to adapt it into a miniseries, which I think was the correct format for it because there's so much subcontext and so much underlying stuff that drives the story. I think it's. I'm becoming such a big television person, anyways.
Nice.
That's kind of my default position for almost any story anymore.
Nice.
But I think this particular one, it's such a long book too. It's 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
I think it had to be a miniseries in my opinion. So I'm glad they chose to do it in that format. And it turned out really well.
Nice. Yeah, I just recommended the book to a coworker today.
Sweet.
Yeah. So it's on my top 19, the adaptation is, and we'll talk about that when I get closer to number 1, actually.
Cool, okay.
So yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
What's your number 18?
Well, thank you for asking, Tiny. This is kind of a surprising one. It's something that we reviewed in episode 33. It is the Vincenzo Natali Netflix movie adaptation of the novella In the Tall Grass. There is just something really fun or immersive about the way that story unfolds with the just crazy tall grass that envelops them, and the time differential aspect of it was really compelling for me. And some of the changes that they made from the novella to the movie helped a little bit with me to kind of key into it. So overall, I kind of really, really enjoyed this adaptation, and I think Patrick Wilson did a good job. I honestly think he did a good job. I kind of think he gets kind of a bad rap, but I think that he did a very good job of playing a kind of crazed character in this movie. So, and then there are certain elements to it visually that I think Vincenzo Natali just nails so well, like the dew hitting the blades of grass and the kind of like microscopic kind of view of the world through that prism of the droplets is really, really just really cool, a little show-offy in terms of visuals, but really, really good. So I really liked it for that. And plug for the Patreon, $5 level, I have a commentary track for that, and It Chapter 2, actually, and Dr. Sleep and The Shining. A bunch of stuff up there.
Cool.
So, yeah, so that's In the Tall Grass. That's my number 18.
Nice. That didn't make my list.
Interesting.
I wasn't nuts about that movie. I did love the visuals that you described.
Yeah.
But for me, Patrick Wilson just barely crossed the line of being a little over the top for me.
Sure.
I didn't hate his performance, but he took me out of it a a little bit. But
that's fair.
It was a decent movie. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Nice. How about your number 17?
My number 17, it may have been the same year. What year did Tallgrass come out?
It came out in 2019.
2019. Okay, so I was off, but 2017 was a huge year for Stephen King.
Oh, yes.
This movie came out on Netflix as well, 1922.
Nice.
Yeah. So I feel like that one is pretty obscure. The story itself, I think a lot of people aren't familiar with.
Yeah.
It was a short story, correct? Or a novella.
Yeah, novella in
I haven't read it, so.
Yeah. You haven't? I thought we read it for the podcast.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I think
I don't remember reading it. I don't think I read it.
Well, I'll talk about that here in a bit. It's not on my list, but it's from the Not Just After Sunset. What's after Just After Sunset? Oh God, I don't know. It's from a collection. I'm sorry.
I don't know either. I can't remember. Again, probably something I should have looked up, but
no, it's fine.
Anyways, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it had a great tone to it. I just loved again, really good visuals. It had a really nice filter over it. I feel like it had kind of a bluish gray filter to it.
Yeah.
Which, for whatever reason, that color tone kind of speaks to me, and personally, I don't know why. So that jumped out to me. A lot of the visuals. I think there's some great camera work with the kind of the sprawling farm fields. Really appealed to me. I love that stuff, and I just think it's a really cool story. I love how I have no context for the novella because I haven't read it, but it's just a great confluence of events, and nice. I think the time setting of 1922 really made it unique, because I think you could have told that story at almost any time. It didn't have to be a period piece or whatever, but it's interesting that he chose that specific year to set it in. I'm not sure why, but it adds another layer of creepiness to it, and desperation. It feels like a more desperate time, I guess. Just adds another layer to it that I thought was really, really cool. And I love Tom Jane in the role.
Oh yeah,
he's awesome. Yeah. So just a cool movie.
Nice. And it was Full Dark, No Stars.
Full Dark, No Stars. Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
So yeah, that's not on my list, and for a specific reason, and that reason is that I remember watching that movie, and I remember reviewing that movie, and I don't remember much about the movie.
Okay, gotcha.
Not because I didn't like it. I actually enjoyed it, but I think it was one of those things where it's taking me back. I was working in the call center at work, and I was working from home, and I was watching it on my laptop. R.I.P. I was watching it on my laptop in between phone calls. And so that is not the best way to watch a movie.
Right.
And yeah, so yeah, that's something I'll have to revisit. I did read the short story, or the novella. I believe I did. But again, it was one of those things where it was kind of in a time crunch because we were going to review it that night or something.
Right.
Or maybe I didn't read it. I don't know. I need to. I'm going to revisit it, obviously.
Okay.
But yeah. So it may be something that breaks into my top 19 when I revisit the movie. But for now, it's not on mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it is my number 17 now?
Yep.
Okay, so my number 17 is a title that we reviewed in episode 38 of the podcast. It is the 1997 miniseries version of The Shining, starring Steven Weber, old Brian Hackett. So it's this. This is I've talked about this before, but I'm just endlessly fascinated with everything related to The Shining in context of King's greater work and his life, his journey, what I know of his journey, because I've talked about this before, but just the idea that he writes this story about Jack Torrance from that perspective, like he kind of makes Jack Torrance in the book a hero. Or he makes it him the central protagonist and everything, while he himself is struggling with alcohol abuse, and I think at that point he probably has some substance abuse issues and everything. And then Stanley Kubrick adapts it and makes Jack Torrance batshit crazy from the beginning. And that's such an interesting, like, different view. That's a different perspective on the story. And then King goes on to write the miniseries to make a more faithful adaptation. At that time, King is sober. I believe he has used Alcoholics Anonymous, so he has Jack Torrance in AA in that version of the story, and it's just an interesting benchmark for like his life and everything. And then we obviously have Dr. Sleep that came out later, and then we have Dr. Sleep the movie that brought everything together and solidified Mike Flanagan as a god amongst mere mortals when adapting King.
Yeah.
And so with the miniseries, it does have its faults. It is something that is a bit cheesy because, like you said, with the It miniseries, it's kind of it's a product of the late 90s. It's something that I think we're so spoiled in the past. We've been so spoiled in the past 2 decades with just prestige television and the television medium being something so artful nowadays.
Yeah.
That to go back and watch something so dated and such a product of that time, it's hard to forget what TV was back then.
Right.
So with those caveats and everything, it's still a remarkable piece of filmmaking, in my opinion, because they do a lot of fun stuff. They pay the story is told in a respectful manner to the source material because King wrote it. And it's a lot of fun. It's really good. It's an interesting different take on what became a horror icon, both in print and on film.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting kind of side adaptation, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's actually number 15.
Oh, nice.
On my list.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought it up, though. It's cool that we both had it on there.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people forget about it, kind of. Because the film just overshadows everything. I think we talked about The Shining a shit ton.
Right.
Was it last year or 2019?
I think it was 2019 because it was in preparation for Dr. Sleep.
That sounds right. Yeah, you're right. You're definitely right. So, we've kind of talked The Shining to death and all its iterations and all that. But go back to listen to those episodes. I think those are some of the best King episodes we've done.
Oh, nice.
On this podcast. I'm really proud of the work we did on those.
Me too.
But the reason I have it on my list is I think it does have a lot of faults, and I bring those up in the episode when we talk about it. I think it needed a lot of editing. I think it's too long. I think parts of it are a slog to get through.
Yeah. But
the characterization is fully on point with what King envisioned in the story originally, the novel originally. Perfectly on point. I think the performances from Brian Hackett, Stephen Weber, and Rebecca De Mornay are fantastic. Their chemistry and their back and forth is like a perfect vision of the book, in my opinion. I love that so much. The kid, not so much.
Yeah.
He's one of the few kid actors in the Kingverse who really did not do a good job.
Right.
He's a kid, so I'm not holding it against him.
Yeah.
But so the characterization, their relationship, and again, just the full vision of the novel being laid out visually is so satisfying.
Nice.
And also just the Stanley Hotel, that visual is so great.
Oh yeah. Knowing the history of it in terms of King's history with it is just really cool.
Right. And you're talking about the movie adaptation 1980 Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. So I think the visuals of The Shining are dominated by Stanley Kubrick's movie, but to throw in the Stanley Hotel really kind of is a good counterpoint to that. And I think it actually rivals that pretty well. Obviously visually this series doesn't stand up to Stanley Kubrick, but it's still a nice, perfectly serviceable film or series from a visual standpoint. And I think that the Stanley Hotel is one of the tent poles of that. So
nice.
Yeah, it's a fun little series. It's worth a watch especially for Shining and King fans.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And you said that was your number 15?
Number 15, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
How about your number 16?
My number 16 is 2021's Lacey's Story.
Oh, nice. That made the cut.
That did make the cut.
Very cool.
Again, for visual reasons, I think that series had such good visuals, the camera work, the direction, the sets, everything about that series was visually amazing.
Nice.
And I think I wasn't crazy about the novel. I didn't love the novel, and even the series. Like, I feel like it's such a personal story to King, and it's so cerebral and such a strange way to tell a story, really, that it kind of doesn't work, if I'm being honest. And that's why I'm not nuts about the novel.
Right.
But and I think if you don't read the novel, the series doesn't really work that well for you, in my opinion. And so I think it's such a niche story that it's it's hard to appeal to a wide audience.
Yeah.
And I think really only fans of the book and people who have read the book are really going to enjoy the series. And I hate to say that because it was so brilliantly done.
Yeah.
The performances are out of this world.
Oh, incredible.
Totally
incredible.
award-worthy performances.
Yeah.
From so many different actors in that series. And it is a fan, again, it's amazing that someone was able to adapt it.
Yeah.
I am blown away by that because, again, I'm not really a big fan of the novel. I think it's a brilliant novel. It's well done, but it's very difficult to access.
Yeah.
It's not a very accessible story novel, and it's just I'm very surprised that they were able to make it into a cogent, appealing, well done series.
Yeah.
I think it's a massive achievement.
And a massive achievement.
Achievement, yeah. I like chief. But yeah, it's just a really beautiful series. I think visually the way they put it together, they knocked everything out of the park. Characterizations perfect, performances amazing, but it's just such an odd story and such a niche, unique storytelling structure that it's very hard to like recommend it to someone or say like, oh, this is one of the best series of the year, like because it's so unique and it's so different. It's not the word I keep coming back to is it's not very accessible,
right,
for a lot of people. There's not a lot of people I would recommend it to, the novel or the series, but it's definitely good and really incredible storytelling.
Nice, well said. And man, so it's not on my list, and I feel like hearing you say that, I really feel like I should have put it on my list.
Yeah, right.
But also, I kind of feel like my reasoning for not putting it on my list is probably due to its freshness in my mind.
Yeah.
So I kind of think, I don't know, maybe that's a cop-out, but
there's so much to choose from, too.
There is. There's a massive amount of stuff. So I think that it's something that could really break into my top 19 whenever I revisit it down the road. But well said.
It's funny. I may never revisit it. I may never watch it again, which is crazy.
Right.
But some of it's always going to stick with me, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nice. Awesome. And that was your number 16?
Yes, which I think you still need to do your 16th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yes. So my 16th is something I don't believe you've seen or read. We've talked about it before. It's 1976's Carrie by Brian De Palma.
Nice.
This movie is... It's something that I never really got when I was a kid. Like, it was one of those movies that I saw maybe once or twice when I was too young to watch it. And I kind of, like, when I read the book, I watched the movie again, and I kind of got a little bit, I don't know, a little bit bogged down with the adaptation aspect of it and everything. But when watching it again after that, sometime after that, I really found myself just enthralled by it. Like, there's a scene, like the prom scene before the actual, like, the iconic sequences and everything. There's like something to Sissy Spacek's performance that is just so warm and just so authentic to this girl who is an outcast who is seemingly accepted. And it's something else. It's really great.
Nice.
Yeah. And so that's my number, 16? Yeah, 16.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I haven't read the book.
We'll get to it.
I've seen chunks of the movie, though.
Okay.
And it looks really good.
Nice.
And then I saw I want to say 2013 remake.
Yes, with
Chloe Grace
Moretz. Yeah.
And Julianne Moore.
Yeah, right.
That was a solid movie. That was good. It's not on my list anymore.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it since 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll cover it down the road.
Sure.
Yeah. So how about did you already give your 16?
I did, yeah. And
okay,
my
and 15.
15 was The Shining.
Okay.
So I'll jump to my number 14.
Okay.
Which is 1994's The Stand miniseries.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my, what is it, 1, 2, 3rd 1990s Stephen King miniseries that I've listed.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to put all these on here because, again, I think, the 1990s weren't a great time for television.
Right.
A lot of stuff was getting picked up, but it wasn't, super, super well produced or crafted or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what those series did is they provided a visual forum for King's full vision of a story.
Nice.
So many things when they get turned into movies or even modern, series adaptations, so much big chunks of the story get left out, and it's not super satisfying because it's so different from the book, and people who are fans of the book don't get too attached to it because it's so edited and condensed.
Yeah.
And this miniseries really covered most of the stuff from the book. It covered a good solid 80 to 90% of the book.
Yeah.
Which again, it gives a forum for the full vision, and that's what I really appreciate about it. There's some pretty good characterization. Gary Sinise and Molly Ringwald are all fine as their characters. They do a pretty solid job. But I think if you can really get past again, kind of the low budget and the campiness of it, I think there's solid creativity there with the writing and the structure and how they chose to tell the story. It's a lot of my picks are based on this is great for King fans.
Okay.
Fans of King and fans of his universe and the original stories that these are based on. I think they're more than just worth a watch. Everything I've mentioned so far, I want to revisit pretty much, with the exception of I think Lisi's story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I think it's just a good representation of the book.
That's really interesting because the Stand 90s miniseries is not on my list.
Okay.
And I think part of that is because I didn't like it as much.
Yeah. But it's very flawed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But also, I think part of it is that we went so hard on the Stand last year.
We exhausted the Stand.
We exhausted the Stand.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just kind of felt like, it was solid. It was okay.
Mm-hmm. And talking about the Stand so much kind of altered my stance towards it, and maybe that's just like a right now thing, and in the future I'll be happy to revisit it and talk about it more. But I'm really talked out on the Stand.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But we didn't do as much time towards The Shining and all of its iterations and kind of the franchise of The Shining. But I'm still more than excited to talk about The Shining with people and revisit it. And so I don't know if it's just a different form of fatigue with the Stand or what, but also kind of the disappointment of the new series.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too,
that
as well.
Hurt a lot, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyways,
nice.
I think it's worth a watch. Yeah.
Nice. And that's your number 14.
It's number 14 for me, yeah.
And I'm going to do 15 and 14.
That's cool.
Okay.
Go for it, yeah.
So my number 15 is Cujo from 1983.
Nice.
And that's interesting because I think probably one of the reasons why I really liked it was that the dog effects, they had actual St. Bernards and then also a man in a St. Bernard costume.
Yeah.
It's thrilling. It is actually frightening. It is incredibly frightening. Even though they changed the ending of the book in a specific way, it's still something that I was really keen on because it does that thing that Stephen King stories do well in some respects. It takes a pretty straightforward concept, or it takes a concept that is kind of a log line. Woman and her son trapped in a car, rabid dog is attacking them. And it creates in it so much tension. And just the way that the heat is kind of showcased in the movie is just really, really visceral and immersive to the viewer. So I really liked Cujo, and that is my number 15. Tiny, have you watched Cujo?
I haven't seen the movie.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I've read the book, but I haven't seen the movie.
Okay, and that's the kind of interesting thing about my pick for that is that I'm not too fond of the book, really.
Okay.
It's pretty scattered and a little bit, I don't know. It's something I'll obviously need to revisit, but it's not something that I'm eager to revisit. So
it's been more than 20 years since I read the book, so I need to read it again. Yeah.
Okay, we'll put that on the docket.
Cool.
On the doggett.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my number 14, though, is also from 1983. We covered it in episode 11 of the podcast, The Dead Zone.
Oh, nice.
Starring Christopher Walken and directed by, oh my God, why can't I think of his name? Is it David Cronenberg?
Oh, that's David Cronenberg. I forgot that was
Yeah.
David Cronenberg.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
I kept wanting to say David Lynch. So, and it's funny because I have not watched it since we recorded episode 11. So it's been years.
Yeah.
And I remember liking it well enough and everything. And I think I was just more interested and into the story and everything. And I think it does a respectable job. Christopher Walken kind of is a little hammy in it from what I remember. But I just think I love the story so much that I forgive it for some of its weaknesses and everything. And I think it's pretty solid. So that's my number 14, The Dead Zone.
Nice. That didn't make my list, actually.
Interesting.
I've seen it, but yeah, I'm not sure why. It's not a bad movie by any stretch. I just that book was my favorite Stephen King book for quite a while. Mm-hmm. I think it's in my top, might be my top 19 favorite Stephen King books. So I hold that book in such high regard, and I feel like the movie turned into a pretty average movie.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's worth a watch for sure, but it's just not. It just didn't even come close to hitting the notes of the tone of the book for me. It didn't have the love story connection that was so satisfying in the book. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely not a bad flick at all.
Yeah,
and I love Martin Sheen.
Oh yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Yep. Nice. So what is your number? Are you 13?
Yeah.
13?
Lucky 13.
Nice.
Mine is the 2019 adaptation of The Outsider.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which was on HBO.
I watched a few episodes of it and I never finished it, and okay. I need to watch it again, or I need to watch it. But yeah, talk about it.
It took some different turns of it sort of introduced things in a different pattern as the book.
Okay.
Which when I first saw it, I'm trying to avoid spoilers here.
Right.
But when I first saw it, I was not receptive to it because that was one of the things I loved about the book. It has a very straightforward, first 150, 200 pages. It's just kind of this mystery. Mm-hmm. And then it takes this supernatural turn just on a dime in the book, which I thought was really cool. Yeah. And I understand some people didn't like it, but I thought it was a really cool thing. And I really love that about the book. And the series doesn't take that approach. It's kind of blending the two genres and the two ideas from the beginning. And like I said, when I first saw it, I was like, damn it, that's going to take me out of it. But they blended it really well, and it ended up working really well over 10 episodes.
Nice.
And I adore the cast and the acting is so good. I think, again, just a very, very dedicated and true adaptation of the book, which I think could have been difficult to do. Yeah. I'm so shocked that this was a miniseries.
Oh yeah.
I was so sure this was going to get picked up as a movie. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it would have been a very good movie.
Right.
Because of time constraints and trying to edit it down into 90 minutes or 2 hours.
Yeah. And fitting in that supernatural element as well as the kind of methodical element of it would have been kind of disastrous for a movie.
Right. So yeah, kudos to, Jason Bateman for his vision with producing it and directing a lot of it, and and HBO for funding a 10 episode series. It's a really satisfying 10 episodes. It was very cool to see Holly Gibney.
Oh yeah.
Exemplified on the screen, because I had I had read 3 books with her. I had 4 books with her at that point. And it's she's a difficult character. She's sort of kind of a slow on the spectrum kind of type character, and that's a very delicate path to walk as an actor and as a writer, trying to capture a character like that. But I can't remember the actor's name who played her. Again, I should have looked this stuff up. But she hit it out of the park.
Nice.
I'm really shocked. Let's see. Her name is Wow, she's not. Why is she not at the top? Cynthia Erivo.
Oh yeah, okay.
She that same year she was nominated for an Oscar,
right,
for playing Harriet Tubman.
I think is she close to an EGOT?
Is she?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else.
I don't know. But she was fantastic as Holly Gibney. I loved. I was so curious to see how they were going to do that character, and she was fantastic. But yeah, it's just also Mark Menchaca. He plays kind of one of the villainous characters, but just so many great turns from actors, great performances. And it's I think the ending of the book was a little abrupt and sort of anticlimactic, and the miniseries had the same problem, but as King fans, we know it's about the journey and not about the ending.
Right.
And the endings can be great, or you can just enjoy the journey you took and just come to the ending. So I don't hold that against it or anything. But I kind of thought it would have been cool if they had sort of been like, hey, we're going to do our own thing for the ending and try to punch it up a little bit and do something a little different. So I'm kind of surprised they didn't do that. But yeah, it's just a really good adaptation. Fantastic acting, great tone throughout it, really good directing, great camera work. It just banging on all cylinders. I think this could be a lot higher on my list if there weren't so many great things to choose from. Yeah,
I really need to watch it in its entirety.
I highly recommend it. Nice.
And also, Cynthia Erivo is one Oscar away from an EGOT.
Dang, I didn't know that.
Yeah. She apparently, I think she won Grammy, Tony, and Emmy for The Color Purple when she was a stage production of it, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Huh.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
And she was, in 2020, she was nominated for 2 Oscars and lost out for both of them.
Dang, okay.
But yeah, the quote that I saw was like, Cynthia Erivo on her near EGOT status, and the pull quote from it is just, "I'm just going to keep working."
Nice.
And I guess she said that she didn't expect to get this close this soon. So,
yeah. Based on what I've seen her in, I think she'll get there.
Oh yeah,
she's really good.
She's very talented.
Yeah.
So that's The Outsider. Tiny. So with knowing that King is working on a story that is going to be a Holly Gibney story, and also with Mr. Harrigan's Phone coming out next year, we might have to do a whole series on Holly Gibney stuff. So
yeah,
and that's good. Oh my God, that's a year in and of itself.
Yes, it is. That's a lot.
Yeah. So the Bill Hodges trilogy, the Mr. Mercedes TV show, the Outsider book, the Outsider miniseries, the If It Bleeds collection, plus Mr. Harrigan's Phone, and then whatever the book is that comes out. So
all right.
So yeah. So
that is so much.
Yep. We've got.
So Mr. Harrigan's Phone is the Holly Gibney story from that?
No.
Oh.
The Holly Gibney story from If It Bleeds is If It Bleeds.
Oh. Okay.
Mr. Harrigan's Phone is a separate novella.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah. Cool. So that's your number
13.
13. Lucky
Yeah.
13.
Yes.
Okay. So my number 13 is something that we reviewed in episode 27 of the podcast, and my dear sweet pizza roll, cover your ears because it's 1989's Pet Sematary.
Oh.
So I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but when Pizza had her UTI a couple of weeks ago, when I realized what was going on and I was panicking and a little nervous, and she was so like she was cuddling up to me and everything, I looked down and I realized I'm wearing a Pet Sematary shirt.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But this movie is, I mean, it's one of the strongest adaptations, and the property of Pet Sematary is one of the strongest point of reference for pop culture, and people, when they think of Stephen King who aren't constant readers or anything, they'll point to like Pet Sematary as one of the titles in his bag of tricks that's most notable or most memorable. And this movie surprised me specifically because, I mean, I have such a strong strong connection to the book. I think it is far and away one of King's best written works. And I am just so in love with that book and am so terrified by it on a just deep emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie does capture a lot of that, in my opinion. And it does so in a way that it's not a perfect adaptation. It's not a perfect movie by any stretch, but the things that it does it pretty well. And the casting is amazing. I mean, oh God, what's Ed Gwynn? As Judd Crandall. I mean, that's iconic. That's an iconic role.
Totally.
And the kid playing Gage is so freaking adorable.
Yeah, totally.
So it's a tough one, but it is it's my number 13. That's
Nice.
Cemetery 1989.
Very nice. That didn't make my list.
Interesting.
But I do hold the novel in the same regard as you do. That's a top fiver.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic book.
Spoiler alert: the 2019 movie does not make my list.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
I was
so
not
much.
a fan.
No.
Yeah.
I appreciate what they tried to do with it,
Yeah.
but they failed.
Right. Yep. Yep. So how about your number 12?
My number 12 is the 2017 Netflix movie Gerald's Game.
Oh, interesting. That's my number 11.
Nice. That's funny. We were close.
Yeah.
So this is from an adaptation from Saint Michael Flanagan.
Yes. Prince Michael Flanagan.
Yes. Who I would fillet if he were here.
Jesus.
And I mean, seriously, when it comes to horror directors, my number one's probably John Carpenter.
Oh, sure.
Mike Flanagan is like on his heels.
I honestly...
And will probably surpass him.
I was thinking about this as I was just burning through Midnight Mass. The amount of just quality work that he has put in throughout his career so far is astounding to me.
Yeah.
And the fact that like he keeps like he's got stuff he's gonna keep working, and I'm just like that's what I mean when I say like he's Prince Mike Flanagan, because he like having watched Midnight Mass, I can definitely see the parallels and I can see the influence of King. So I'm like he's a different. And granted, he's very talented at adapting King, but he, in telling his own stories and everything, he's very much a student of King, and that's why I'm like, okay, well, he's a prince.
Nice.
He's,
I like it.
Yeah. So, and I feel like there's like a complete set of artists who are, students of King, who do their own work in a really Kingy way, but have their own voice. And Mike Flanagan is like the top of the line on that.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was reading Gerald's Game, the novel, which I enjoyed a lot. I remember thinking, I read it with the knowledge that the movie was coming out soon.
Right.
And so I remember as I'm reading the novel, I was like, how the hell are they going to make this a movie?
Yes.
Because a solid 80 to 90% of the movie takes place with the main character handcuffed to a bed. I was like, this is going to be weird. It's going to be boring. How are they going to pull this off?
Yeah.
And Mike Flanagan, as he does, didn't just pull it off. He hit it out of the park.
Oh, yeah.
This is such a great movie. I am so blown away by the fact that he kept such a visually constraining movie was so visually pleasing.
Yes.
He uses such an incredible color palette in all of his movies and shows. And with a horror story, you think it's going to be the colors are going to be dark black, navies, grays, really charcoal dark movie, but that's not what I associate with this movie. I associate these beautiful sunsets on the lake where the sun is this orange yellow bright red sun is reflecting off the lake, and there's all this beautiful color to it, because so much of the backstory of the movie takes place on the lake at sunset, and there's all these gorgeous colors for such a dark, disturbing story and movie. Yeah. And it's so cool how he managed to, I have no idea if that was even intentional, if he was just like, well, sunsets are bright and beautiful. Like it just kind of happened to weave together that way, but it's just not the visual that I would associate with a story like this. And it's so crazy that that's what he planted in my mind with this story. And not to mention, great performance from Carla Gugino.
Yeah.
Just, again, really difficult ask of an actor to, hey, lay in a bed for 2 weeks while we film you. That's really tough. Such a physical performance.
Yeah.
And she...
have all of the tension just be contained in your physical performance.
Right. I mean, a crew of people filming you, and that's such a vulnerable state. That's got to be so harrowing as an actor. And she just nailed it.
Yeah.
So good.
I mean, like you said, the ask of that is insane to me. Just like... hey, we're adapting this book that has heretofore been regarded as completely unadaptable. Yeah. I need you to have very limited movement, and I need you to communicate as much of the everything about the character through your physical performance and your delivery of certain lines and everything. And on top of that, I need you to carry all of the tension and really, really sell the peril that you're in.
Right.
And my God, just putting all of that into context, she was on another level.
Right. And before all that, your character is going to get sexually assaulted by her.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So there's that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really, I was not, this was like kind of, I think this was my introduction to Mike Flanagan.
Oh, nice. It might have been mine too.
Yeah, I hadn't seen his other, I can't even remember the name of his other horror movie.
He's done Oculus and...
I still haven't seen Oculus.
Okay, it's good.
Yeah.
Absentia and, Hush. Hush. Oh my God.
I saw
Hush
that one later
really
on. That's
good.
a cool movie too.
Yeah.
But so yeah, this was kind of my introduction to Mike Flanagan, and I have, he's one of my favorite filmmakers right now.
Oh, mine too.
He's huge right now. So, this was my introduction to him, and it's amazing that he pulled this movie off.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
so cool.
That's something I was thinking about before, as well, because, the fact that he's not doing a revival is absolutely heartbreaking.
It is.
And like in my head, I know that he's going to do another King adaptation at some point. His plate is a little full. He has this other limited series called The Midnight Club that's going to come out, I think early next year, maybe. And then it was just announced that he's going to do another limited series for Netflix, based on Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. So he's got a full plate, but what really there are several things about him not being able to do revival. There's several things about that bums me out, but on a weird level, there's this thing in my head that I wish that he was able to do revival, because then that would make his Stephen King adaptations fit into this weird, like, loose trilogy of like what I would call like the unfilmable King adaptations.
Yeah.
Because you've got Gerald's Game, Dr. Sleep, and then Revival, which I have no doubt he would have knocked out of the park.
Yeah.
And just like the impressiveness of his work with Dr. Sleep and Gerald's Game is I don't know. I'm such a sucker for like a good like grouping of 3 movies and stuff, because I'm insane. But yeah, so that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I loved Gerald's Game. I need to revisit it. It's one of those things, in full on credit to Mike Flanagan and everyone involved, but it's one of those things I'm scared to watch again.
Yeah.
Because of one specific scene. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah. So that's your number 12?
Number 12 for me.
And that's my number 11.
Sweet.
And we covered that in episode 7 of the podcast.
Nice.
And I'll go ahead and give my number 12. And Tiny, we're going back to 1983, which is so interesting because this is the third 1983 title that I have on my list. And it's number 12. And nothing smells quite as good as number 12 on a list, except for maybe Christine from 1983.
Nice.
No, Christine, John Carpenter. I really, really love this movie. The practical effects, the visual effects of the car, just that alone is just incredible. And it just has this, the book is really good. I really love the book, but it has this interesting structure to it. And the movie kind of doesn't have that structure at all, but it has at its core, it's something that probably shouldn't work as well as it does because it seems to take the same avenue of several different filmmakers who adapt King in thinking that, okay, we're going to make this, the central part of this is what's scary about it, is the log line. Okay, a demonic car that kills people and everything. And so what John Carpenter does is he does that. He makes that the focal point, but he also does make Arnie and, oh God, what's the jock's name?
I don't even remember.
Dean Stockwell. They make the central characters, their relationship really, really well done and everything.
Yeah.
But when you get to the scares, it's not gimmicky or anything. It's just, it's really good. It's amazing. I love it. Yep.
It's my number 4.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I love this fucking movie.
That's awesome.
Like I said, with Gerald's Game, John Carpenter is my favorite horror director.
Very cool.
The Thing is one of my top 10 favorite movies ever. And Christine, for me, it is what they achieved with this car. The visuals, and the tension and the horror and the action they achieved with the practical effects of the car. How they, for me, I think we talked about it when we reviewed this movie. The ultimate scene in this movie for me is when the car reanimates itself after it was vandalized and is essentially, Arnie spent a year just working on this car in his spare time and put so many hours and hours into redoing this car and building this car. And within the first couple days, these assholes vandalize it and absolutely wreck it.
Yeah.
And he just sitting there in the garage and tells it, show me what you can do or something like that. And
show me.
Yeah, show me. And just the reanimation, the practical effects, they didn't cut any corners in showing all that. They could have gone an easy route. This was pre-CGI. The way they pulled that off is just amazing. That scene sticks out in my head, and all the classic lines. Like you said, the relationship was captured surprisingly well in a movie where it could have totally fallen by the wayside. You could have had some really ancillary characterization in this movie, but they pulled it off really well. And it's kind of surprising how well it works for a horror flick.
Oh, absolutely.
And like in 1980s, when slasher movies were having their comeuppance, you have this really solid, rooted horror movie. Yeah. It's really kind of surprising how John Carpenter pulled that off.
Wow.
I love this fucking movie. It's
that kind of blows my mind a little bit. I'm going to have to kind of think about that because I don't think I really ever considered its placement in horror in terms of its release. Cause like this is 83. This is, I mean, if not the height, it's like basically when like Friday the 13th is kind of kicking ass a little bit.
Right.
And so like there's kind of a big pull for slasher movies. And I didn't think about that in context of.
And it's made by the guy who kicked off the slasher subgenre.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So.
God, that's awesome.
It's another layer to it.
Yeah.
I love this movie. It's all of the what they achieve with the car for me. I can't take my eyes off it, and I love this movie for that reason.
Nice. That's awesome. So that's your number 4.
It's my number 4. Yep.
And it's my number 12.
12, yeah.
My number 11, again, we talked about that in episode 14. We talked about Christine. My number 11 is Gerald's Game, which we already covered.
Okay.
Did you give your number 11?
Not yet.
Okay, let's hear your number 11.
Okay, it'll be pretty quick. My number 11 is 1998's Apt Pupil.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Which we chose not to review it for our Apt Pupil story, and we went over those reasons in that review.
Yeah.
But I really, really like this movie, sans all the controversy around it. There was kind of a thought exercise you mentioned, I think it was on this podcast, if you could list an actor, because it's when we were talking about Stand By Me.
Oh, yeah,
an actor who died too young, and if you could bring them back for another 50 years to make art for another 50 years, who would you choose and why? You had an awesome choice with Anton Yelchin.
Right.
Fully agree with that. We were referencing River Phoenix, who had such an incredible performance in Stand By Me. My choice would be Brad Renfro.
Yeah.
Who passed away when he was in his mid-20s, I believe. I think he died of a heroin overdose.
I think so too.
He had drug problems. But I love Brad Renfro. I've loved him in every performance he's ever given. He's a great actor. I think he was in his mid-teens when this came out.
Sounds about right.
A young teen, 14, 15 years old when this came out. So he was kind of the perfect age for it.
Yeah.
To me, he was the standout. I think Ian McKellen is also amazing. And he was kind of he wasn't as well known at the time. I think this was pre Magneto.
Yeah.
And X-Men, which is what really launched him, at least for American audiences.
Right. Mainstream audiences.
Mainstream
probably.
audiences. That's a good way to put it. But yeah, the two core performances are just fantastic. Mm-hmm. And I think the story there's so many disturbing aspects of the story.
Yeah.
It's hard to capture all that in a way that's still palpable for even an R rating. Like,
right.
The story is kind of an X rating almost. The book, the novella is kind of an X rating with all of the disturbing shit that happens. And so some of that stuff isn't in the movie, but I think it almost would have been poor taste to try to capture some of that in the movie because it's so disturbing.
Yeah. And I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's not on my list.
Mm-hmm.
And I've recently been talking to my friend Sam. He's one of my colleagues on the IFJ,
mm-hmm.
and he was also a guest on the Obsessive Viewer a couple of weeks ago to talk about Malignant, and he reached out to me a while ago, much like Victor did. He reached out to me and said, like, "Hey, I haven't read any Stephen King, even though I've read a little bit of Stephen King, even though seeming like someone who would devour all of his stuff. I don't know if he necessarily asked me to recommend where to start, but he said, like, I think I'm going to start with Apt Pupil." And he was like, and I'm a really slow reader, so I need you to really, to really like, keep tabs on me and everything. So I've messaged him back and forth. He just finished it fairly recently. But he had seen the movie. He loved the novella. And he is now moving on to the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so he saw the movie and he had some really interesting thoughts about it. And I agree with those thoughts as well, because he says that the movie in comparison to the book is so tame in comparison. And I have my own kind of issues with the movie, aside from obviously the main issues that I have with it about the assault and the Bryan Singer of it all.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I kind of wish that it would have done, I wish it would have went harder, honestly, with it, because you're dealing with Nazism and sociopathic tendencies and everything, and I feel like it's a little bit tame for my taste for the movie. But
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So that is your number what?
11.
Yeah. And so I'll go on to my number 10.
Yeah.
It is something we recently talked about, so we don't really have to spend too much time on it, but we talked about in episode 70, and it's number 10. It really should be higher. It really, really should be higher. It's in 1986's Stand By Me.
Nice.
Just a perfect coming-of-age story, perfect coming-of-age movie, perfect acting, just all-around amazing, amazing movie that I'm going to have to push up a lot in my list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. It's my number 6.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I agree fully. Just I love everything about the movie. So damn good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We didn't talk it to death, but we talked a lot about it a couple episodes ago. So,
right.
Yeah. It's pretty fresh.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. It's
cool.
really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to give your number
10 for
10,
me would
yes.
be next. It's funny that I have this on here. I have such a good memory of this movie, but I haven't seen it like damn near since it came out.
Oh, wow.
1999's The Green Mile.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't make my list specifically because I haven't seen it since high school.
Right. I think maybe I was a teenager last time I saw it.
Yeah.
But I have such a high memory of it and such a fond memory of it. A young, kind of unknown Sam Rockwell, having such a villainous role in it.
Yeah.
He jumps out to me. Iconic Tom Hanks.
Oh yeah.
This is a
Frank Darabont.
Frank Darabont adaptation, who was, kind of the original prince.
He's one of the original princes.
Original princes.
Yeah.
So it's just got so many things working in its favor. I'm curious to see how this movie holds up in a Black Lives Matter context.
Oh yeah.
In a modern attitudes towards race.
Mm-hmm.
Because it kind of has the whole magical black person character, which has become borders on the offensive now.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious how that, how wide audiences and myself will react to it.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays. It's something I want to revisit soon. But what I remember of the movie is just so positive. Really good performances. So many great lines.
Mm-hmm.
And just really good camera work. Again, it's another period piece, which I think is captured well in the movie. I just have really fond memories of this movie, and I kind of can't wait to revisit it. I'm sure at some point we'll probably tackle. I don't know if we'll do a combo where we do the book and the movie in one episode or break them up, but it's something I really want to, because I've never read the book.
Oh yeah, me neither.
The book. So it's something that I want to visit on the podcast.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because, friend of the show, Kim C at the Year of Underrated Stephen King, she's currently going through the book, and the book was released in serialized format in 6 parts.
Right.
And so I've thought she's doing piece by piece. And I've thought about how we would tackle it, and I was thinking we would do a kind of just check-in recordings. We would read it, and then after each section, we would kind of what we did with The Stand.
Okay.
Only kind of put that all together and release one episode just covering that. Maybe
interesting.
I don't know.
That's an interesting idea.
And then doing the movie separate.
Okay.
So I don't know. We'll see, but I'm feeling that itch because I want to hear those episodes of the Underrated Stephen King, the Year of Underrated Stephen King. So, I want to read Green Mile.
Totally. That's a good idea. I like that idea.
Yeah. Nice. So that is your number 10.
Yep.
Yes. And so we're at my number 9.
Okay.
Which we just reviewed a couple of weeks ago. It is 1982's Creepshow.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
Your number 9?
No, my number 9.
It's my number 9.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
That's funny.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. Check out episode 71. How you feel about it these last 2 weeks?
It's sat with me even more, and I've liked it even more. I've
nice.
Just sitting in my head more. I think I love it even more. But I just the word that keeps coming to mind is just how damn fun the movie is.
Yes,
it's just so fun.
Oh yeah,
it's campiness, but it knows it's campy and it has fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I love when movies pull that off. It's a very rare thing to pull off.
Yeah, and
this is maybe one of the best examples of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, I agree, and I love it so much. It's amazing. It's great. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. We don't need to talk more about it, but it's fantastic. Creepshow, 1982.
Yeah.
It's my number 9, and it's our communal number 9. Yes. How about your number 8?
My number 8 is also something we talked about fairly recently. Is 1990's Misery.
Oh, interesting. That's my number 7.
Nice.
Interesting. We talked about that in episode 57.
Nice.
Yeah.
To reiterate some of that, it's just it's another very iconic King story, and I think it's iconic because of the movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, fans love the story and love the book.
Yeah.
The book is a top 3 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe my favorite. Maybe my number 1.
Nice.
I don't know. I gotta get back in that.
Right.
Think about that list. But I adore the book, and thankfully the movie was a really good adaptation.
Yeah.
Never going to be as good as the book, but Kathy Bates. Iconic performance, and just damn near flawless performance, and just a good job keeping every. I love the I think Rob Reiner achieved a good sense of isolation.
Yeah.
Which is a theme that I'm automatically attracted to. I just in stories, movies, books, I love that theme, and he captured it well in the movie. I think that was well done. And just the violence was very palpable in the movie as well.
Oh yeah.
It stuck out. So yeah, just a really good adaptation.
Yeah, I agree completely. And it is one of those stories that it is about that isolation, and it is about that containment. The tension between those two characters is just so palpable and visceral, and the violence is amazing. I love it so much.
Yeah. The psychological damage that Paul Sheldon goes through is not as well featured in the movie as it is in the book. In the book, it's crushing.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal in the book.
Yeah.
And it's sort of overlooked a little bit in the movie.
Right.
But there's so many other great things about the movie that
absolutely.
you can kind of forgive it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Really good movie.
Nice. So we've come to my number 8.
Yes.
And Tiny, I don't remember if I mentioned this on this podcast or in the Patreon, but just in case it was only on the Patreon, my laptop died a couple of weeks ago. I lost everything. One of the things that I lost was our just famed Castle Rock drop. So
yeah,
my number 8 is going to be unaccompanied by brilliance, but I'll just say it. It's Castle Rock is in the house tonight. Everybody just have a king time.
We hardly knew you.
Yes. I'm so sad about that. But anyway, it is Castle Rock, the TV show from Hulu. This show ran for 2 seasons starting in 2018. We covered it in several episodes. We covered 2 and 3 episodes at a time, give or take. Check the show notes or check the website, the master list, and our archive page. But man, this is what I want out of a Stephen King adaptation distilled into a miniseries format and an anthology miniseries format. It is so spectacular. The way that it blends stories, and it blends like actual like stories from King into these unique and new stories with new characters that aren't King related. Like the whole Henry Deaver thing in the first season is amazing. The kid is amazing. And the way that it pays homage to King's work with having Shawshank being a central place, I still cannot believe that we had a miniseries that had Tim Robbins at Shawshank Prison in a scene. Like that is just like, that's amazing to me. That is absolutely amazing to me. And so that show just kind of seems like it seemed like it was the playground for King fans, to really play in the imagination of King fans and King's work. And I really loved it. Even with some of the issues, I guess, with the second season, I didn't really find much issue with it, but I know like you did, and I know some people didn't really care for it that much. But man, I absolutely loved Castle Rock, and it's something that, I mean, it's my number 8 on my list. So yeah, it's
nice.
Just it's an amazing show.
Cool. Yeah, it didn't make my list. I feel like the first season, both seasons were a little bit of a, not the word slog is too harsh of a word, but
right.
I feel like it needed some condensing for me.
Sure.
I don't know, because it was each season 13 episodes?
No, I think there were 10.
Were they 10?
Yeah.
It felt like more than that. I don't know. But it was, both seasons were a little too drawn out for me.
Okay.
I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the idea. Maybe it was the fact that we were kind of watching them week to week.
Sure.
It wasn't all been binged in one season like we've all become accustomed to.
Right.
As TV fans. So maybe that hurt it for me. But
interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't as connected to it, though I do give it so much respect for how it weaves so many different ideas and concepts and stories together. I love the description you just had, that it was kind of like King fans' playground.
Right.
That's a really good descriptor for it.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's definitely a good show, and I would probably have it in a top 30 adaptation.
Nice.
But yeah, it didn't quite make my list.
Sweet. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
So we already said my number 7 was Misery. What's your number 7?
My number 7 is 2007's The Mist.
Oh, that's my number 5.
Nice.
Yep, that's a top 5er.
Right. The second Frank Darabont entry on this list. I absolutely love this movie. Such a good adaptation and such a good, a truthful, Frank Darabont's kind of the master of a faithful adaptation.
Yeah.
Especially a King adaptation. He does such a good job with that. And The Mist didn't really need a lot of editing. It's a very, the book, the novella is a very tight story. Not super long, but this was something that was well adapted or well suited for a film. Nice tight story. Didn't need to be a miniseries, so prime choice for that, I guess.
Yeah.
But an incredible cast. I loved everybody in this movie. Such great characterizations. Again, there's a big cast of characters, so I think it'd be easy for a lot of people to get lost in the shuffle. But there's so many characters with speaking roles that had true development and became part of the story.
Another Tom Jane one for your list.
Yep, definitely. That's too. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, just amazing that they were able to pull it off. It's really scary, has great visuals. Some of the camera work really jumps out to me. There's so many great scenes in this and so many good snapshots of great camera work in this. And again, it's just, I think the idea of the mist as a concept of mist with creatures in it is so goddamn scary.
Oh, yeah.
And it's incredibly scary in the book, and they pulled it off so damn well in the movie. All these creatures that come out and just decimate people and some of your worst fears, brought to life. It's so cool. Blood-sucking creatures and creatures with tentacles and creatures so big that you can only see their feet in the mist.
Right.
That's incredible, and they pulled it off in the movie, and I'm so happy with it. And they chose to, no spoilers, but they chose to go a different ending than the book, and it's one of my favorite King endings, maybe one of my favorite endings ever. So incredibly bleak, but earth-shattering, and memorable, and will stick with you forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such a good movie.
Yes, and I mean I agree wholeheartedly. Like I said, it's my number 5, and I will also add to that the interpersonal conflict, the human aspect of it, the horror in the store with the factions that rise, the fear, how fear just kind of creates in it this hope, a lot of people, I won't spoil it or anything, but there's like this religious wave that goes over the people in the store. It's an ensemble piece, and people gets to the root of the evil of people. And it's just really, really just an incredible kind of self-contained or very contained story of community in a really messed up way. Yeah,
the sociology of it is fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. So that was your number
7.
7. Okay. And we have not covered it on the podcast yet, but we maybe sometime next year. We'll see. So my number 6 is something we covered in episode 40. We've talked about it a little bit here tangentially, but it is 2019's Dr. Sleep.
Nice.
I mean, where is this on your list? It's got to be on your list.
It's on my list.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I'm picking up what you're putting down. So I adore this movie so much, just for all of the reasons that I stated in episode 40 and in the commentary track on Patreon at the $5 level. That the achievement, the magic trick of Mike Flanagan melding together the book, The Shining, the movie, The Shining, the book, Dr. Sleep, and his movie, Dr. Sleep. It's a perfect symmetry of these very different things. And it's just that it's a magic trick. It's a freaking magic trick. It is so amazing. And like I listened to a podcast, just a movie podcast that I discovered. I'm not going to name names or anything, but like I kind of feel like Dr. Sleep is a movie that in like critic circles and in kind of maybe not necessarily in greater pop culture or anything, but in critic circles, it's not respected. It's not like it got kind of mixed to negative reviews. And like this podcast that I listened to talked about it like, oh, it's a terrible movie because they said that anytime the movie invoked the imagery from Kubrick's movie, it just took them out of it because it's not a Kubrick movie. And I'm like, okay, that's a little snobby. Respect what they're doing with the story and everything.
Yeah.
But it just kind of, I don't know. It's just it's much more than that. It's more than a sequel to The Shining. It is a continuation of a story of a troubled individual who was a kid who experienced a horrible experience and has a horrible gift and is now an adult dealing with his own issues and everything. It's just an incredible movie, an incredible adaptation, and it is my number 6. Jeez, I need to move that up. It's my number 6, and it is Tiny's undisclosed number.
Yeah. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. So what's your number 6?
Well,
5,
so
4?
number 6 was Stand By Me, which we talked about.
Gotcha.
So next is my number 5,
Okay.
which is 1980's The Shining, which is kind of a nice companion to what you were talking about.
That's my number 2.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which I think I might need to switch Dr. Sleep and The Shining, honestly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The Shining. What more can we say about it that we haven't already said? A couple years ago when we talked about it, but
in episode 37.
37. Nice. It's. I think this movie is the pinnacle of King iconography.
Nice. Well said.
In my opinion, which in Stephen King's probable opinion is unfortunate because he's not a fan of the movie.
Right.
But we made peace with that when we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can love the book and love the movie and still be King fans.
Yeah.
I don't even think Steve would be mad at us for that.
No. Steve, if you're listening, let us know.
Right. Please let us know. Record it.
Yeah.
But
or just come over.
Right?
Just come hang out.
Yeah. And so, in this episode, we're talking about movies and adaptations and what we like. And Stanley Kubrick is a top 5 favorite filmmaker for me.
Oh, yeah.
I have been a Kubrick fan since I was a teenager. Nothing's changed. He is one of my favorites. And his talents are on full display in this movie.
Yeah.
It has flaws for sure. And we talked about those. Doesn't capture the characters well at all. There's very little characterization.
Right.
There's spotty script here and there, but the visuals just put it over the top for me.
Yeah.
This is just a visual movie, and I challenge someone to take their eyes off this movie.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous.
It's an exercise in just perfectly drawn tension and mood and atmosphere.
Yes.
It's absolutely amazing.
All those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. Great performances. There's all kinds of rumors and stories, behind the scenes stories about this movie. There's all kinds of interesting stuff to read about it. It was it was a Stanley Kubrick production. Yeah, they're always troubled and difficult, and there's always stories from the making of, and that's just part of the lore and the fascination with this movie. It's an iconic movie, and I'm, like I said, it's the pinnacle of King iconography, and I'm fine with that. Yeah, nice, well said. I echo those sentiments. It's my number 2, and it's there for a reason. It's one of those movies that, even though it is so drastically different from the book, and there is all of that baggage about it as an adaptation and King not liking it and everything, and like even what I said earlier in this episode about it being its own thing and different from the book and not really honoring the book in any significant way. With those like issues aside, it is still like the most just massive horror movie. It is like that. It is, like you said, the pinnacle of King iconography, and it's something that is just incredibly immersive. So that's my number 2. Sweet.
Yeah. Shall I go on to my number 4?
Yes.
Okay, my number 4 is something we already mentioned. So I'll talk briefly about it. We also talked about it in episode 41 of the podcast with Mike White. It's 2016's 11/22/63.
Nice.
Everything you said earlier in this episode, I echo. It is just, this came out pre Castle Rock, and it was one of those experiences where I watched it and I thought, man, this is how you do a King adaptation. This is the way you lovingly include Easter eggs to King work. And this is the way you do this core story of this romance and this romantic relationship, this tension and this fight against time. And it's so well done, and it's just fantastic. I really loved it. I really loved 11/22/63.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah. Thank you. That's my number 4.
Sweet.
Tiny. Top 4? 3?
Yeah, my number 4 is Christine.
Okay.
Which we talked about earlier. So, top 3.
Yes.
For me, it is 2017's It Chapter 1.
Mine too.
Nice.
My number 3.
That's hilarious.
Yep. We reviewed it in episode 4. And you and I did a commentary track for it in episode 31.
Nice.
Yes. So yeah.
Sweet. So I think what so many people love about this story is it's these kids.
Yeah.
This team, the Losers Club, the club, is incredible. And I complimented it in the 1990 miniseries adaptation. I think those kids did a good job. I think they captured it decently well.
Yeah.
But with this adaptation, It Chapter 1 in 2017, they perfectly nailed it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, just as good as the book.
Oh, yeah.
Which I never thought somebody could do.
Oh, absolutely.
They found, was it 5 kids? 6 kids?
You're putting me on the spot.
I know. I'm trying to remember here.
Let's see.
5 or 6 kids.
Yeah. Richie, Bev, Bill, Stanley, Eddie, and Ben.
Ben.
They're the 6 losers. Yeah.
6 of them.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yes. 6 phone calls.
Nice.
At the beginning of the book. Yes.
Okay, sweet. 6 kid. They found 6 kid actors.
I guess it would be 5 phone calls.
5.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Right.
Mike. I forgot Mike. So it is 6 phone calls, 7 kids.
He comes in later. So
yeah. Yep.
So they found 7 kids, 7 kid actors who weren't just good, but great.
Yes.
Which I don't know if that's ever happened.
Oh, no.
I think this is the first time that's ever happened in cinema history. They were so damn good, and they none of them were, there's no weaklings. Right. They were all fantastic. And that, for me, carries the movie. If they just hit that, you have a good movie.
Yeah.
But on top of that, they took one of the probably top 5 most iconic areas of King iconography.
Yeah.
Tim Curry as Pennywise, for sure, is a top 5. And I think they maybe either met it or excelled it with...
I think so too.
With Bill Skarsgård as the new Pennywise.
Yep.
He was fucked up. And I mean that in the most complimentary way I can possibly say.
Right.
And it wasn't just him, it was the makeup, the costume work, the CGI that they achieved for him. But it was all capped off by Bill Skarsgård's performance and his creepiness. Like I can't see that guy in any other light ever again.
Oh yeah.
He's forever tainted for me.
Yep.
Which I mean in the most complimentary way possible.
Right.
And so they just achieved that, and they did it. Making it 2 parts was such a good idea. I never would have seen it as a movie, or I could have seen it as a trilogy. Yeah. I think they pulled it off in 2 parts. They did a good job. Spoiler alert, Chapter 2 is not on my list.
Right. Mine neither. Yeah.
Wasn't a bad movie, but they missed the mark on it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is a real bummer. And it wasn't a fault of the cast. I think it was really good casting. It was script and structure issues that hurt that second chapter.
Totally agree.
But again, a top 30 adaptations, it'd probably sneak on there.
Maybe for me.
It's close, but thankfully we have Chapter 1 that was damn near perfect. And I really love that movie.
Nice. Yeah.
Also scary as shit.
No. Absolutely.
Goes without saying.
Yep. Just the way that it depicts Derry is so great, and I loved it so much. Even with like they made some choices here and there that I didn't quite like that much, but all of the characters are really fleshed out really well, and the chemistry is just out of this world. It is amazing.
Yeah,
it is amazing. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say about it, but
sweet.
It's incredible. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. And
Your number 2.
My number 2 is The Shining. We talked about it.
Sweet.
So we're at my number 1, Tiny.
Nice.
Where are we at with you? Do you have a number 2?
I do, but it might be your number 1.
It is guaranteed to be my number 1. Okay. So we're at an impasse here.
So yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. So my number one Stephen King movie or TV work adaptation is 1994's The Shawshank Redemption.
Nice.
Which we covered in episode 56 of this podcast, and I don't know what all I can say about it. It is about as close to a perfect movie as I've ever seen. It is one of those just absolutely amazing. It's heartfelt. It's weirdly feel good, and it has this I recently watched the trailer, and it's so weird because it was marketed as this like feel good like Oscar bait movie, which it sort of is, but the finished product, the actual movie, stands on its own and is its own thing and does everything just so perfectly. And just that story of friendship between Red and Andy is just it is absolutely magnificent. So that's my number 1, Shawshank Redemption.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's my number 2.
Nice. Shocker.
Yeah, right. Your statement that it's basically a perfect movie, as perfect as a movie can get, I fully agree with that.
Nice.
It is basically a 10.
Yep.
10 out of 10. I don't know how to say anything else, but other than it's noteworthy that it's, since we're in the arena of adaptations, it's damn near word for word.
Oh yeah,
which is shocking.
Absolutely.
That almost, again, talk about something that never happens.
Yeah,
I mean, there's almost always some kind of editing and something that's drastically different between the book and the movie, but there's really nothing.
Yeah,
there's we talked about it in our other episode, but there's the warden character is kind of 3 different people in the book, and we just have the one warden in the movie, but that's kind of a negligible thing almost. I think all of the actions of those 3 wardens are exemplified and characterized in the one character in the movie. Yep. So I think there's enough crossover that it's not even really that big of a deal.
Absolutely.
The lines are the same. I mean, it's an incredibly tight adaptation.
Absolutely.
It's as tight as an adaptation can get. I'll put it that way.
Yep.
Which speaks to how great the book is.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
and how great Frank Darabont is.
Oh yeah.
Right. With it, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Just the care that he has for King's work is so evident in all of his adaptations of it.
Well said.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome number 1, obviously.
Yep.
We're only one off, so.
Yeah. So I can't help it. I know what your number 1 is.
Yeah.
2017's The Dark Tower.
I was going to make that joke.
Nice.
But yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
It's 2019's Dr. Sleep.
Nice.
I think that was my number 3 for the year in 2019 on Obsessive Viewer. It was
that sounds right.
Number 2 or 3. I can't remember.
Was that the year 1917 came out?
It was. That was my number 1.
That was your number 1.
Yeah. So that was also 2019 was my favorite year for movies of that decade.
Oh yeah.
The 2010s, that was my favorite year for movies, and so it's no surprise that this is my number 1, but it's my number 1 for a different reason. I think this was an impossible movie. It was an impossible movie to make because like I said, The Shining is the pinnacle of King iconography. So to blend that in a visual way with a book, and to blend it with a movie that King doesn't like, and to bring all those things together and change the book, the ending of the book is is way different than the ending we get in the movie. I think the movie's better. I actually think the movie's better than the book. I think that's the only adaptation on this list that has that moniker and has that designation for me. I don't think any of these other adaptations are actually better than the book, except this one. And I hate to say that because I love Steve, but again, Mike Flanagan can do no wrong, and the way he blended all of these things together it was impossible, and he pulled it off.
Absolutely.
And also I think what he achieved for me, you know, when this, like you said earlier, we kind of reviewed all of the Shining franchise leading up to this movie coming out.
Yeah.
And so when this movie came out, I really think of the Torrance family as like a family. Like they occupy a space in my head. The Torrance family, all three of them. And to have this is their perfect ending for me. Yeah. This movie is it's the perfect conclusion for the Torrance family. And I had such a strong emotional reaction to this movie. I was blown the fuck away by the ending of this movie and how he blended all these things together. And so I had such an emotional attachment to this family, and the conclusion and the ending that Mike Flanagan gave to them is just perfection.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely adore it. And that for me, that's what makes it actually better than the book. Yeah. The book is in my top 19 books for King. I can't remember where it falls, but
yeah, me neither.
I'm pretty sure it's top 10 for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just, I can't say enough good things about Dr. Sleep. I think my top 3 would be a great choice for number 1 for anybody. Like I think they're all great number 1 choices, but Dr. Sleep is such a personal pick for me just because of I feel like I have a personal relationship with the Torrance family. Nice. And the ending that Mike Flanagan gave to them was perfect. So I can't, that's why it's my number 1.
Nice. Well said. Yeah, that I agree. Yeah. I agree. You have a very personal connection with it. Nice. No, I totally agree.
Sweet.
Yeah, so that's our top 19
we
adaptations.
Did it, man. Yeah. I'm really proud of this list.
I am too. I'm very proud that I'm probably going to be cutting it, like I'm going to be redoing it.
Well, and I love that our lists we had some really close similarities, but a lot of differences too. Like, there's 8 or 9 on yours that are not on mine, and vice versa. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it speaks to the volume of his adaptation body, his body of work, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just the variety is unreal.
The variety, yeah.
Yeah. So before we kind of close out, I do have something I want to kind of say before we close out, but let's just recount. Each of us go 19 to 1. Since you just talked a lot, I'll talk.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So to recap, my top 19 Stephen King movie and TV works / adaptations. Starting at 19. 19 is Sometimes They Come Back from 1991. Number 18 is In the Tall Grass from 2019. Number 17 is The Shining miniseries from 1997. Number 16 is Carrie from 1976. Number 15 is Cujo from 1983. Number 14 is The Dead Zone from 1983. Number 13 is Pet Sematary, 1989. Number 12 is Christine, 1983. Number 11 is Gerald's Game, 2017. Number 10 is Stand By Me from 1986. Number 9 is Creepshow from 1982. Number 8 is Castle Rock, the complete series from Hulu. Number 7 is Misery from 1990. Number 6 is Dr. Sleep from 2019. And number 5 is The Mist from 2007. Number 4, 11/22/63, the miniseries. Number 3 is It Chapter 1. Number 2 is The Shining from 1980. And number 1 is The Shawshank Redemption from 1994. 19 is a lot to just recap.
It is. That's a big list.
Yeah. So hope you guys liked that. Tiny, recap.
Yeah. My number 19 is It miniseries from 1990. Number 18 is 11/22/63. Number 17 is 1922. Number 16 is Lacey's Story. 15 is The Shining miniseries. 14 is The Stand miniseries. 13 is, The Stand miniseries from 1994. I should specify that. Yeah. 13 is The Outsider miniseries. 12 is Gerald's Game. 11 is Apt Pupil. 10 is The Green Mile. 9 is Creepshow. 8 is Misery. 7 is The Mist. 6 is Stand By Me. 5 is The Shining Kubrick film from 1980.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4 is Christine. Number 3 is It Chapter 1 from 2017. Number 2 is The Shawshank Redemption. And number 1 is Dr. Sleep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. And as we do with the novels we review and everything, we're going to keep these lists in the show notes of each episode. And whenever we review and cover an adaptation, we will ask each other if it breaks our top 19. So look forward to that in the future. I actually have a lot of plans for us in 2022 to watch a lot of stuff to kind of coincide with my Patreon project that I'm doing. So it should be fun. But so I want to kind of close out with some Twitter feedback that we've got. Mm-hmm. So, before we were supposed to record on October 5th, but then those plans fell through, I tweeted, the plan tonight was record our Tales from the Dark Side, the movie ep for next week, but instead we're going to do an episode counting down mine Tiny's top 19 Stephen King movie and TV adaptations. So if you're reading this, out of curiosity, what is your number one favorite? So I'm just going to read some of the replies that I got. Just really quickly, we've got, let's see. So the very delightful Stephen King fan account, I guess, at Might Steven. It's Stephen King Might Recommend. He said, I think Carrie remains the gold standard for King cinema adaptations. Dr. Sleep is also gorgeous. My favorite is Firestarter. And he also said, I think the 1994 version of The Stand is the gold standard for King TV adaptations, but his favorite is the 1979 Salem's Lot miniseries. Wow. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then recent Patreon supporter Jason said his number 1 is Shawshank, number 2 is The Mist, number 3 is It Chapter 1, number 4 is Stand By Me, and number 5 is The Shining. And he says, I know I have The Shining a bit low considering its place in cinema lore, but this is my list based on level of excitement to stumble upon when scrolling through the channels, which I think is a really good way to kind of gauge Creed, how you like it and everything. And then Chris said Dr. Sleep, and let's see. Garnett said Shawshank gets my top film adaptation. Dr. Sleep is right up there. For TV, I give it to the Outsider, which just barely beats out Golden Years.
Golden Years.
Yeah. And he says, don't let me hear you say life's taking you nowhere, Angel. Come get up my baby. I think that's a reference. Golden Years is I think it's like an original. It might be a Mick Garris thing, but I think it was like an original thing that King wrote for TV.
Oh, okay.
It is on my Vudu, I believe. And then also new Patreon supporter Paige said The Mist 100% just barely based on the amount of times I've rewatched it compared to all the others.
Nice.
And then David said favorite is Stand By Me, but I've always had a soft spot for Cat's Eye, which I'm excited to get to because collects some stuff it's an anthology film with a bunch of stuff from Night Shift.
Cool.
Let's see. And then Rudin said, recent pick 1922, changed the ending, otherwise pretty spot on. And he said, older pick was Shawshank. And there's so many more just
nice.
Loaded.
That's nice. There's a lot of variety in there.
Oh yeah. Fellow Stephen King podcasters, the Losers Club said, Stand By Me in all caps. And Robert in Utah, can't leave him out. I need to scroll up to find him. Where is he? Where are you? Okay. Robert said, this is so tough. If I'm ranking the best, it's Shawshank Redemption. If it's my favorite, it's the 90s Stand miniseries. I know it's not the best, but nostalgia and it kicking off my love of King is the big factor. And I love that answer. It's awesome.
Nice, yeah. I love that it's all very personal.
Oh, absolutely.
That's one of the best things about it.
Yep. And then the Talking Scared podcast said, taking Shawshank out of the equation because it's too good and closes down the conversation. I'd probably say The Mist just edges Misery today, but maybe not tomorrow.
Nice.
And I'm just going to kind of scroll through. Sorry, I'm not getting through everyone if you guys are listening and everything, but check the Twitter feed.
Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's our episode on Our top 19 film adaptations, or film and TV adaptations from King. This was a marathon.
It was.
Yeah. RIP to my laptop.
Yes.
And thank you guys for listening. And check out Patreon if you can, because I need to buy a new laptop. But also on Patreon, I did do, like I said, reviews for every episode of Midnight Mass. And I've done commentaries at the $5 level for a bunch of entries in the Halloween franchise, and I'm thinking I might do the same for Paranormal Activity, because the new one is coming out in a couple of weeks.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep, it's going to be on Paramount Plus. It's Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. So look forward to that. But yeah, check out Patreon if you're into that. Tiny, do we have any parting thoughts for our listeners?
Nope, I don't.
All right, well, in that case, thank you guys so much for listening, and long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
And now, here's a short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. To hear the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. I don't know, maybe I'm just associating that type of music, that type of score to a garbage movie, but hearing the score or the opening theme music for Foundation just sounded very similar to that. So, for example, here is a clip from Roland de Velde, the track from the Dark Tower movie. So that's Roland de Velde from the Dark Tower movie. It's, like I said, it is just very generic, very blockbuster filmmaking-y. And then here is the part of the opening theme music that I used for the start of this Patreon recording for Foundation. Like, it sounds like the same goddamn music.
Tower Junkies is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to TowerJunkiesPod.com/archive. You can also like our Facebook page at Facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod and follow us on Twitter at TowerJunkiesPod. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is just a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at TowerJunkiesPod.com/donate, or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at Patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberinirvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find our flagship movie and TV review and discussion show, The Obsessive Viewer Podcast, at obsessiveviewer.com and on Twitter at obsessiveviewer. You can also find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone, and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com and OVAnthologyPod on Twitter. Finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. Music for the podcast is provided with permission from Fingers T on YouTube. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening. Long days and pleasant nights.
Kitty!